So when I first saw the Orcust archetype, I thought there was quite a lot of potential with it. I mean, think about it, they're all essentially Burning Abyss, even though Burning Abyss can special themselves from hand, making them not bricks. The Orcust monsters just are kinda crazy, considering there's one that's Banished from Grave, special one from deck, Banished from Grave, special one from graveyard, and Banished from Grave, special summon from hand. We also have one that banishes and special summons one from Banished. Then, in Savage Strike, you see that there's one that sends any of these by banishing itself from the graveyard. Plus, all of their Link monsters are actually pretty good. So with all of that in mind, this archetype has been set up to be really good. And this was their final chance to get something really good for the archetype, because of the fact that the World Legacy storyline lore is coming to an end. Orcust actually got some really good support, and in the end, because of this new support and just how good it is, the deck is able to be a tier 1 strategy. So with that long intro out of the way, in today's video, I'm going to talk about the 2 new Orcust cards coming out in Dark Neostorm and why these 2 new cards make Orcust top tier after Dark Neostorm. So first we have Sheorcust Dingirsu, which is a rank 8 Dark Machine Xyz effect monster with 2600 attack, 2100 defense. It requires 2 level 8 monsters as material, and it has the following effect. You can only special summon Sheorcust Dingirsu once per turn. You can also Xyz summon this card by using one Orcust Link monster you control as the material. If this card is special summoned, you can activate one of these effects. Send one card your opponent controls to the graveyard, or attach one of your banished machine monsters to this card as material. If a card you control will be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can detach one material from this card instead. So to start, this card is only good because of that clause to special summon using an Orcust Link monster. What, are you going to use 2 World Wands to Xyz summon this card? No. But at the same time, the fact that it has that clause makes this card playable. But are we going to play it if it has a bad effect? No. So it has to have a good effect, and oh man is this effect good. To start, the obvious thing is its removal for the deck. Going second, if you're playing against a deck, you can easily remove cards. It doesn't target, meaning that if your opponent has a response to the effect, let's say for example, just a quick play taking control, like for example, enemy controller or a new trap card that comes out in Dark Neostorm that I can't remember the name of, but with all that in mind, this card will send a card regardless. It doesn't have to target a card. So again, if you target an enemy controller and they chain it, well, then just, send something else. However, what's so crazy about this card is the fact that it can be special summoned on your opponent's turn with the field spell and Symbol Skeleton. So already your deck has removal with cards like Dingirsu, and the fact that it can send a monster that's linked. What's important to note about Dingirsu is the fact that it can send any card regardless of a card being linked. It as well is spell and trap removal, because remember, this card says card. That means a monster or a spell and trap. If you just special summon this card, it is any single card your opponent controls. Something Orcust have been missing is a dark monster to deal with spell and traps. Now they have something. Because all of the nightmares are, well, Phoenix is a fire, meaning you didn't have spell and trap removal before. Now you have this card to deal with those spells and traps, and it's an in-theme archetype card, which makes it that much better. What's also essential about this card that makes it so good is its second effect. At first, when reading this card, you really don't think it's that good. I mean, sure, it sends a card your opponent controls going second, and it can protect itself, sure. When you look at this deeper and deeper, you will think about it, and you will realize that this card is just so much better than you would have initially thought. It protects all your cards, including the field spell, which obviously the field spell is kinda essential for the strategy to work. It enables protection from Ghost Ogre on something like Summon Sorceress, so it protects your cards as combo pieces. And the fact is, this thing is only restricted in summoning itself once per turn. So if this card has 2 materials by attaching one of your banished machine monsters to this card as material, you can protect your cards twice. And speaking of attaching material, while it may seem kinda useless, is actually really good. For example, recycling banished materials back into into the graveyard. Because if you summon this, attach a material that's banished, for example, you can attach a banished symbol skeleton. That will set up your symbol skeleton for the following turn, or your opponent's turn. It also says any card, which, like I already stated, protects the field spell and summon sorcerers, but it also protects your cards from Topologic Bomber Dragon. If you set up a Topologic Bomber Dragon and you set up generic cards that will get destroyed under it, then that means you can just use this card and protect all your monsters from a Bomber Dragon effect. I was testing this deck with Phantom Knight Wings post Savage Strike so I can protect a card like Borreload Savage Dragon under Topologic Bomber Dragon. But now really the difference is that whole idea is rendered useless just because of this new card. I mean, not necessarily useless, you can still do that, but at the same time this card just does the exact same thing, so what's the point? A simple way of looking at it is this effect makes all of your monsters Thunder Dragons as long as this card has material. And speaking of Thunder Dragon, this deck plays around Thunder Dragon so well. Galatea sets a card from deck and does not search. All of your effect monsters do not add from deck to hand, so that completely plays around Colossus. And so just in general, this deck kind of destroys Thunder Dragons. One more thing to note about this card is it's an Xyz monster. Because it's an Xyz monster and it's rank 8, because you're already playing Bard in your deck, you can, instead of setting one of your Fog Blades, instead set their rank up spell. And because of that, you can rank up your Dingirsu into a Calamities. So not only are you setting up a Dingirsu for your opponent's turn because you detach the Dingirsu from Calamities during standby phase or something, and then you'll already have the symbol skeleton in your graveyard, so you'll have a Calamities, you'll have a Send with Dingirsu, you'll have a Fog Blade, and with all of that, you'll have whatever else you want at that point because this deck is just so crazy. If you already have the counter trap, which I'll get to in a second, there's another disruption. If you have the field spell, you can set the counter trap instead. The big reason why this deck is so good now is just because of the fact that this rank 8 exists and just solves so many issues, as this card solves the issue of not having spell and trap removal. It solves the issue of dealing with cards on your opponent's turn that aren't, for example, something like Longirsu. Like if your Longirsu can't deal with the card or your Orcustrated, then well, you're kind of screwed at that point. But now with this card, it has that ability, but as well, it's a rank 8, which gives you Calamities access. It gives you another way of protecting your cards. So this card alone solves so many issues, and I really think this card alone can make the deck top tier. But even then, we also have the counter trap, which you can, I guess, argue that this deck wouldn't be tier 1 if the Xyz monster came out, but we didn't get the counter trap, but we actually do have the counter trap. So what does the counter trap do? Well, its effect is as follows. You can only use either of this card's name's first or second effect per turn, and only once that turn. When a spell slash trap or monster effect is activated while you control an Orcust Link monster, negate the activation, and if you do, banish that card. And its second effect is you can banish this card from your graveyard, add one Dark Machine monster in your deck, or that is banished to your hand. You cannot special summon monsters during the turn you activate this effect except Dark Machine monsters. So if you were saying this deck doesn't have a way of negating cards, well, this deck now has a way of negating cards. This is an Infernity barrier, which is already ridiculous for the archetype, as it already had everything else going for it. And as well, Orcustrated Climax is searchable through Galatea. Usually you want to search the field spell first, but if you already draw the field spell, like if you have access to it already, then you just set the Orcustrated Climax and it becomes that much better because you have the field spell and Climax. Hard drawing Climax is another disruption to use. But as well, you can just banish it from the graveyard and add a Dark Machine. Sure, this isn't good turn 1 or turn 2, depending on the scenario, because it restricts you to only summoning Dark Machine monsters that turn. And it does not save the rest of the turn, remember that. So that way, you can keep in mind that you have to activate this card the turn you only summon Dark Machines. You can only summon Orcust monsters that turn, pretty much. But regardless, it's still a search. It's already an Infernity barrier, so you could play this just because of that fact. But then it also has a search effect, which wasn't needed whatsoever, but it's there, making making this card 100 times better. Regardless of the card existing though, you already have the Rusty getting you access to Calamities and a Fogblade, you have the Dingirsu, and if that wasn't enough, you can set up other Orcust monsters, and you can set up a card like Topologic Bomber Dragon. There are so many options for this deck to go into disruption wise now, and it's just so great for this archetype. Sheorcust Dingirsu has completely changed this archetype, and along with the counter trap as well. I'm not necessarily excited at how powerful Orcust are post the support, considering it's so gosh darn good, but nonetheless, for any Orcust fans, your deck is finally meta. I might be proven wrong, but it seems so crazy, especially when you look at combos, that I doubt it's not tier 1. Just watch Lithium's video for an example of the combos and how it does against the best deck in the OCG right now, Salaman Greats. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. What are your guys' thoughts on Orcust post this new support? I will have a poll in the top right corner of this video asking, do you think Orcust are tier 1 after this new support? Sorry for the late upload today, guys. I promise the rest of this week and for the future, hopefully, uploads won't be late because I will be pre-recording uploads. But at the same time, regardless, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys want to support me further than just watching my YouTube videos, go down into the description and support me on Patreon. It helps out quite immensely. As well, if you guys want to communicate with me and other members of the BladeYGO community further than just watching my YouTube videos and the YouTube comment section, go down into the description and join my Discord server. I'd love to have you guys there. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and with that, I hope to see you soon.